Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, social media, everything really depending on the guests. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. You will soon recognize my guest from a film that's coming out called Inheritance, starring Lily Collins and Simon Pegg. We're with Josh Murray. Josh, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here. You know, I was just checking out your channel this morning, and the interview that popped up, what was featured was Drew Starkey, and I just had a pitch pilot called Limbo that I did with him that was making the rounds this year.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Yeah, his show, their Outer Banks is like blowing up right now.
I know. I've been hearing it from the other castmates from Limbo about him doing that. I used to actually vacation as a kid. I lived in the Mid-Atlantic, so our vacation hotspot was the Outer Banks. A lot of good memories from there.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and it's an exciting time, and the movie comes out pretty soon, in 2 days. How have you been preparing for it?
You know, I've been talking up to people and, like watching some of the reviews come in, like I see how different people are responding to it in terms of critics. It was actually out on TV already, on direct TV, so some people have already had a chance to catch it, but it's going to be releasing widely now, so like, you know, more of the like my fan base and the audience and stuff will get a chance to see it.
For sure.
I'm bummed that with coronavirus there's no theatrical release, got canceled, and I was planning to go to the Tribeca premiere, and of course that was canceled as well. But I'm glad that people are going to get to see it, and more people are watching stuff streaming now anyway.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get into the film soon, but before we do that, I kind of want to know a little bit about you. When did you decide that kind of acting and storytelling was something that you want to do?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't have the classic story of like growing up being, I want to be an actor at all. Mm-hmm. But my dad was a big movie buff and actually a spec screenwriter for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And so as a kid, I did actually read his spec scripts growing up and just kind of envisioning them as movies. And so I had a lot of appreciation for movies and story. My dad's always been a writer. And I also, I watched old classic movies and I read a lot of literature growing up. So I had definitely always a big passion for story and arts. And it wasn't until really I was like in college that a number of circumstances in my life kind of led me to start to rethink the direction I was going in. And I decided to try acting.
Yeah, for sure. And have you always been that guy that kind of wears many hats growing up? Are you looking now, like you're acting right now, but like is writing something that you've had interest in? Like, are you the type of person that wants to kind of explore many different things in the entertainment industry?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I'm not a jack of all trades and I don't feel the need to do everything. I do tend to like focus on one thing at a time for the most part and really try to develop excellence on that. I get kind of stressed out when I'm trying to do too many things. No, but I have, since I really started pursuing acting seriously, I've definitely delved in other things. I mean, I directed my first short film about, 7, 8, 9 years ago now. And I helped, I crafted the story and I directed it and I produced it and I acted in it. And that was a great experience to see other sides of it. And, now I'm acting and producing on a feature length film. So it's definitely, something I want to be a part of in more capacities than just acting, but acting is still, the centerpiece of it.
I like how you put that, the centerpiece for sure. So Inheritance, comes out in 2 days. Talk a little bit about that film. What was the experience like working on it and what can people expect from that film if they check it out?
Yeah, well, I think no one could have predicted that when we were making this film about a guy who's been stuck in a basement for decades would be coming out in the middle of like a worldwide quarantine. Everyone's stuck at home, like getting cabin fever. Mm-hmm. So there's jokes abound about that theme in the film. It's a mystery. It's a psychological thriller. There's some spooks and scares in it. And it also tackles some themes about justice, equality, the truth, like lies, things that we cover, like the skeletons in the closet. I think I think from the few people I've heard that have seen it have felt like it definitely kind of kept them on the edge of their seat. In fact, one of my friends caught it already and said they had trouble sleeping that night. So um, definitely should give you some thrills.
And I feel like it's not necessarily, it's a thriller more than a horror film, correct?
Definitely. And I actually don't really like horror films. It's too much for me. I do love thrillers though, and it's definitely solidly on the thriller side rather than the horror. It's not a gore fest thing, but it definitely has some scary moments.
And talk a little bit about the cast and crew of the film. I mean, if people look at the poster, I mean, Simon Pegg and Lily Collins got to work with those two amazing actors that have been in a lot of really cool things. I mean, what was that experience like, kind of working with that specific cast and crew for Inheritance?
Yeah, well, so they were a huge part of making the decision to join the film. When you're playing a flashback character, it's not the most glamorous thing, because you're not the center of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of a storytelling device.
Yeah.
But I looked at the cast, and I mean, Connie Nielsen, Gladiator, and of course Lily Collins, Simon Pegg have a very prolific, and many other actors who in the film, like Patrick Warburton, Chase Crawford. And I just looked at the cast and I was like, this is excellence. These are a lot of excellent actors. And just to be around that environment, I've even done projects when I was earlier on in my career that weren't even acting, like just doing stand-in work, just to watch people that I respected. And so I think that good things can happen when you surround yourself with excellence. And so I really just appreciate the opportunity to work with people that I respect and admire their work. And I think the thing that was a surprise to me was the director. I never worked with Von Stein before, but he was the most enthusiastic director I've ever worked with. And like from day one, he was just so supercharged. I mean, he's British, and he just comes in and he's like, sorry, I've had too many espressos today, so I'm really charged up, but we've had an amazing day, and like, let's do this, And it just was so fun to work with him. He was the biggest fan. Like when I did something that like nailed the scene or had a moment that was great, he was just the biggest fan of the work. So it ended up, I was expecting or prepared to be sort of like a side item or like kind of just an afterthought in the story, in the film, in the project. And like he treated me and our scenes as equally important as anything else in the film, and he just really took a lot of time and a lot of enthusiasm like invested into everything that we shot. And some stuff doesn't even make it into the movie, but like he was prepared to try to use the material, and he wanted to be as perfect as he could make it. And I really appreciate when someone like really cares about what they're doing like that.
Yeah, that's something I find interesting about kind of making a film. I mean, sometimes, do you find that's like a misconception sometimes, where someone sees kind of a final cut of a film, right, and they do not realize that depending on the chunks, like there could have been a lot more things that were actually like filmed that were but like kind of taken out of the movie. Like I always thought about that. I find that interesting when the final cut comes out. And then, that doesn't mean that was the only stuff that was shot, like, at all. I feel like people don't realize that. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I think people have no conception. Even actors who are like early in their career, they have no conception of how much gets burned in terms of footage. I would say like it's not even a thing. It's like a common thing.
Yeah.
I mean, with this film, like, I was working on and off in this film for like 3 weeks, and most of what we shot, was not able to be used in the film. And it's not because the footage wasn't good. It's not because they didn't like the performances. It's not because they didn't have an intention to use it. It's just that when you come down to the final product, like you have only so much time.
Yep.
And with a thriller, it has to be concise and it has to be compressed. And you can't fit everything into it. And at the end of the day, even if you love a scene, you have to say, like, will this work in the big picture?
Yeah.
Like, do I have time to fit this in? And it has to serve the story. And if it's not critical to the story, then you have to get rid of it. And I know many filmmakers who've been like, oh, I love this scene and I hate to like lose it, but for the good of the movie, I have to. I was talking to my manager after I did this project, and he was telling me that one of his clients did a film. I won't say who, but he did a film for like one of the most famous directors out there, and he went to Europe and shot for like 3 weeks playing one of the main characters, like the romantic interest of the star of the film, and everything
Got cut.
of the performance was cut. Like his character was deleted from the movie, and it's not because like, oh, he sucked or like there was a mistake to shoot it. Just like at the end of the day, this is the movie they came
And
up with.
what? You know what the worst part about that is? I found out yesterday that's probably still on his IMDb.
Yeah. Oh,
because
yeah.
I found out, like, I was searching through someone's IMDb and I saw that they were in the show, and I asked him about it, and he was like, "Oh no, I was recasted." So he never did it, but it's still like on his IMDb.
Still on his IMDb. Yeah. And like I know friends who've like gotten cast in big movies and had speaking parts, and they've like marketed it and like talked it up of like, hey, catch me in this movie, and then they end up on the cutting room floor and like they're not in the film at all. And it's like, I thought you said it was in the movie. I'm like, well, I thought I was going to be in the movie.
It might or might not be Inheritance, but what is the ideal like Josh Murray like project? Like, what is kind of the project that gets you really excited to do? Whether it's drama, whether it's sci-fi, is there kind of a project in mind that is kind of like close to your heart the most that you really want to work on, or maybe you have already?
Yeah. So, I mean, a few films that I think would encapsulate like what really excites me would be Last of the Mohicans, period action film, Master and Commander, High Seas Adventure, Inception, mind-bending psychological thriller with this amazing cool vibe. I mean, I love everything Christopher Nolan makes. And then I would say, fantasy, like Lord of the Rings is also like really in my wheelhouse. So like anything that's in the vein of those 4 films, I think that I said 4 films, would be like a dream come true, the project for me.
Have you worked on anything that kind of has a little bit of elements from one of those films before, or?
Oh, absolutely. I think like the majority of the stuff I do,
it's kind of in that realm.
I'm very grateful, is kind of in those veins. Yeah. I have a film also smaller film coming out in the near future called Final Frequency with Lou Ferrigno Jr. from SWAT and Charles Shaughnessy, and it's a sci-fi thriller, and I play this mysterious FBI agent, and there was like this plot to take over the world kind of thing. I did another film that just came out on Netflix called The Reliant, and that's a faith-based action adventure, which is like post-apocalyptic and like looters and hiding in the woods and gunfights, and I had a lot of fight scenes. So like all that kind of stuff, the thriller, the action, the period stuff. I did a film called Killing Lincoln, which was the most historically accurate representation of the assassination of Lincoln on film that's been done before. And that was a huge project to work on. Eric Jendrinson, who made Band of Brothers, was also the creator on that project. And he is just a wizard with story and with historical accuracy. And so that was like a great, realization of that kind of passion that I have on a project too.
That's
so
amazing.
I've really like had a chance to do a lot of these things. I mean, I even did a fantasy film with a couple fantasy films with friends of mine, just kind of like pilot, like pitch projects. But that's always fun to do play in like a fantasy world too.
No, absolutely. It's awesome to hear. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming on Popternative, man. I really appreciate chatting with you.
Oh, it was my pleasure, man. I'll make sure to tell people about your show and check out Popternative.
I really appreciate that. So they're going to be able to check out Inheritance, I believe, DirecTV, I believe.
It's already on DirecTV, but it's coming out streaming everywhere. So Amazon, Google, iTunes.
And I feel like people know what you mean. Like when you say like everywhere, like I feel like they don't realize like everywhere, like anywhere you like purchase or download a movie, you can get it.
Yeah, it's like just on demand. Demand it wherever you demand it, and it's there.
And where can people follow you specifically on social media? Yeah,
so Instagram is where I mostly hang out, Josh Murray Actor. Just go to Instagram at Josh Murray Actor, and I have the same handle on Facebook and Twitter if you're there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and good luck with Inheritance, man.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Be sure to check out Inheritance with Josh Murray, which is a thriller that you must check out. And until next time, this is Josh Murray and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.